I can't tell you how much talk and crazy hate happened when I was talking about Tom Brady and not being a quitter. And, well, you saw what happened. He quit, then he unquit, then he quit again, and then he unquit again. And then when it was time to show up to work, he didn't even show up. But that's not the point. The point is I was threatened to be banned from TV. I was threatened so many different things because of the way Tom Brady quit. You wait until you hear what I have to say about Serena.
Welcome to the Licensed to Live show, where professionals, doctors, champions, VIPs, attorneys, and those in public office discover strategies that help you restart and gain what is lost when you find yourself accused. If another has doubted your integrity, questioned your credentials, or caused your actions to come under scrutiny, you are in the right place. On the other hand, if you have never felt the knot in the pit of your stomach when legal papers are served, the heartbreak of disappointing your family when the lock clicks shut on handcuffs, or had to appear before a board of review, then be aware, the longer you serve, the more likely you are to find yourself under the microscope of those who judge. Prepare yourself for this uncomfortable possibility. Now, here's your host, Dr. Jarrett Patton.
Welcome to this episode of Licensed to Live. My name is Dr. Jarrett Patton, and I'm your host for our journey together today and every day you choose to listen to this show. If you or anyone you know has been dissed in their career, please invite them to join us along this journey. Just go to Apple Podcasts or anywhere you listen to your podcast and hit subscribe so that you can directly get the most up-to-date information about career and life changes. Well, yes, the Brady hate was real. And yes, television producer, when I was pitching the segment to a couple of news outlets, they flat out told me, you know what, you're going to lose your job. You're going to get banned from TV. You can never come on talking about Tom Brady, and even backed it up with some of the things that really did happen to people, and sent me some articles regarding having this television producer get fired because of something they said about him years ago. Just all types of nonsense. But you go back to those episodes. Of course, I'll put them in the show notes. But those episodes were all about the ways that maybe you shouldn't quit and going on that. And I was really making an analogy of the way he did decide to quit, not really calling him a quitter because he's arguably one of the best. But of course, everybody's talking about Serena. Everybody's talking about Serena. Shout out to Serena. You know, you've put in the time over and over again, practicing your craft. I mean, I told you guys earlier in an earlier episode about me flying back from LA back to Philadelphia and watching King Richard and the tears welling up in my eyes and all of that. And it's like, okay, I can see where you guys are coming from. And Serena certainly has accomplished a lot. But, well, despite being 320 some odd days, let's just say a year as being the number one tennis player in the world, well, she says it's time to move on, to do some other things. And, well, that's fine. You know what? And many of you may be the best at your job. And, well, it may be time for you to quit too. Nonetheless, we are going to break down what Serena said and what that means for you right after we finish thanking our sponsors. Hey, this is Dr. Jarrett Patton. Do you need more positivity in your life? No matter what part of your life you want to transform, positive affirmations can help you achieve your goals. But sometimes making permanent changes can be difficult. Designed with you in mind, Licensed to Live. Daily affirmations to rebuild your life will inspire and equip you to become the best version of yourself. Licensed to Live. Daily affirmations to rebuild your life will set you on the path to changing your mindset, beliefs, speech, and ultimately your actions. You can change your life now by getting your copy at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, your finer book retails, or licensedtolive.com. That's licensedtolive.com.
Something smells good. EH3 coffee. EH3 coffee. Premium organic. Nothing better than waking up. EH3 in your cup. Premium organic. EH3 coffee. Nothing better than in the middle of your day. EH3 coffee. Premium organic. EH3 coffee.
This is Super Bowl champion Mike Logan, and you are listening to License to Live.
Hey, fire starters, I do want to mention a lot of people have been hitting me back saying, I didn't even know about License to Live, the conference. I didn't know that was going on. Why didn't I hear about it? Look, I tried. It's out on social media. There's only so much I can do. But here's the deal. I know a lot of you guys, for whatever reason, couldn't make it. And I have a deal for you today. Go to licensedtolive.com and you can get the replay. Not only do you get the replay of 10 dynamic speakers that filled the stage with inspirational stories and actionable steps to get your career and your life in order, not only do you get 8 CME credits or CEU credits or any continuing ed credits, 8.5 for attending this, and that's something you can use. You will get to see the pilot for License to Live, the TV show, because we did the pilot live from on stage. So for that and so many reasons, go to licensedtolive.com and get your replay ticket today. Now, back to Serena. Serena Williams, the world's #1 tennis player, almost a child prodigy because of her older sister Venus, who played on a very high level for a very long time. And they became child stars and quickly grew into the world of becoming a tennis champion. And I was ready to head up to Arthur Ashe Stadium just recently to go watch Serena play for her last time, but it became a zoo because there's so many people there wanting to see what's going on, because she did say the U.S. Open was going to be her last professional bout at being #1 in the world. So hats off to her. But I brought up this topic because she had an article in Vogue back in August that really talked about her moving on and retiring. And this is specifically what she said. And I say, quote, "I have never liked the word retirement. It doesn't feel like a modern word to me. I've been thinking of this as a transition, but I want to be sensitive about how I use that word, which means something very specific and important to a community of people. Maybe the best word to describe what I'm up to is evolution. I'm here to tell you that I'm evolving away from tennis toward other things that are very important to me," end quote. So Serena talks about this evolution, and I think that is a great framework to think about the way you go through your career in general as an evolution. And we'll get specifically to the evolution part of it in a minute, but let's look at it from her framework. I mean, yes, she is arguably one of the greatest of all time. Could be the greatest of all time, depending on what you're talking about. But certainly she's a force to be reckoned with in tennis. And it took a lot of work to become #1. And really, she had to do it in the shadow of her sister for quite some time. But she worked a very long time in her career, just like many of you have, by going to school, by getting professional degrees, maybe even doing advanced residency training or maybe fellowship. You may have put in easily 10 years of training into your craft that you do today. And that's what you have to do to become the best. And you have to continue to train and practice. And you guys know what I said about King Arthur as I was flying back from Los Angeles with tears in my eyes. Oh, gosh. But, King Arthur is the movie about Serena and Venus's father and what it took for him to bring them along to the greatness that they ultimately grew into. And when you're thinking about all of the training and time of practicing their craft, and, if you're doctoring, you can't really start to do that till you're an adult. So it's not like you can pick up a racket at the age of 3, like Serena may have, but you certainly have to go to school and start that training process at a young time. And yeah, you become a professional student, so you can say that you may be the greatest of all time as far as being a student is concerned. But becoming number one takes a certain mindset. And a lot of times you have to be prepared to stare adversity in the face when it strikes, and it can't deter you. I mean, after all, that's what the License to Live brand is about. No matter what comes your way, you are still licensed to live. And adversity is going to strike people at any given time. And a lot of times it comes at the least welcome time, perhaps when you really have some things going on that you want to do. But you can't let these things sidetrack you. You can't let things that are out of your control sidetrack you. You have to continue to put your nose to the grindstone and keep working on your craft, working on your craft, working on your craft. And that can be any craft. For me, that's podcasting. I was talking with Podcast Movement. It's a big podcast conference, and we're talking about me being one of their speakers next year. And I never thought that I would push out 120 something episodes on the podcast. When I started, I said, oh yeah, this will be a good 30 or 40 episode thing, and then I really wouldn't know what to do. But it's continued on, and a lot of that is because of you. So thank you for all you listeners that are listening. You're keeping this show successful, and I'm going to continue to give it to you because it is something I enjoy what to do. But I would not put myself in the podcasting Hall of Fame because, well, I only have a little bit of time under my belt, and as far as I'm concerned, I'm still a novice, and I still need to practice my craft so that I can put out a better show, and then a better show, and then a better show. And I'll continue to put out the best show that I can put out. But that's what number one is. You have to stay working at it, despite adversity, despite things that come in your way. And that is the mindset of a champion. And whether it's the mindset of Evander Holyfield, and I told you a lot of the things that he did coming up in the Evander Holyfield versus Mike Tyson episode when I talked to Evander about coming up being a championship boxer. You heard it from Mike Logan, the Super Bowl champion who was on the License to Live show a little bit earlier in season 1. He talked about achieving great things. So people that become, number one or become exceptionally great at what they do, they all have a common story, and they have to work at it. And once you're number one, that's not the end of the story. I mean, this is kind of the fun part, because the importance of planning is what I was getting back at you with the Tom Brady episode. And you need to be able to come up with some sort of plan, because ideally you could get a job and you could be the best in that job and run that job for a while as long as you're the best of it. And in fact, even when you're no longer the best, you could still run that job for a while because you had a legacy and a legend of you being the best. And if you weren't just out there and saying, hey, I'm the best, I'm still the best, even as your rank is slipping, you can still do some great things and still perform at a very high level. But what you don't necessarily want to do, and this is where Tom Brady tried to step in and intervene on himself. His story's still yet to be told. This is where Serena is stepping in and intervening on themselves because, well, let's face it, you cannot be number one forever. And while you're on your way up to number one is a great time to start planning. While you are number one, it's a great time to start planning. And even after you've been number one and you're starting to fall, well, it's still a decent time to plan because you do need to have a plan because by the time you reach 100, 1,000, 1 million on that list, well, things aren't so rosy for you anymore. And you probably would need to have some sort of sideline option ready to go. And that's a heed of warning to all of you guys out there. I mean, I know the people that listen to this show, all you fire starters are high performing individuals. You have to be, otherwise you wouldn't be listening to this show, because you want to hear from other high performing individuals that are doing some things and it may help you in your own life. The importance of having this plan lies twofold. One, you have a goal to work towards. So if something does go haywire in your primary, we never expect it. I know I didn't, but when it happens quickly. And if you don't have a plan, you're going to be left out. And I had to spend 1.5 years of my life, not only fighting for my life, but also making a plan because I didn't have that plan for when things would go sideways or turn around or when I was no longer number one. When I was number one, I was feeling it. I was a great pediatrician. I was the number one medical staff president. There was just lots of things going on. But then suddenly you're not number one anymore. And then what do you do? So having a plan. And Serena started Serena Ventures several years ago, actually. And that's a venture capital company. And that's something she had some interest in. And she took that interest and turned it into a side business for herself. And that's one of the things she specifically mentioned in this Vogue article as something that she is looking forward to in this evolution. She's looking forward to doing some of these other things that, well, she had to put on the back burner while she was busy being number one tennis player in the world and maybe of all time. She had lots of endorsements and working with other brands, and whether it's Milk or Nike or huge brands that she's worked with over her time. Yes, as something else that she can do besides tennis, which leads to more time on screen or television or film or lots of other opportunities for her, because she said, you know what? I probably won't be a tennis player for the rest of my life. At least a professional one. Most of you guys can say the same. You probably won't be a nurse professionally for all of your life, or a doctor of all of your life, if you're able and have the blessing to live a long and healthy life. All of these things are there. And Serena knew that her title as champ would be time limited, and there's other things she wanted to do. We're not even talking about, hey, getting married and starting a family and having kids of her own. Yes, motherhood may be something she wants to do more of, and rightfully so, because that is something else that you can do. And that's certainly something she can do. And when she was spending so much time working, building her brand as tennis number one, yes, just like all of us, parenting may have gone by the wayside a little bit despite our best efforts. And so these times of evolution is something that will work very well for her, serving herself forward, because she says, you know, there are other things in life besides tennis for me. And, you know, I could retire when I'm number one like I am now. I can retire when I'm number 6,000,001. Or when Dr. Jarrett picks up a tennis racket and becomes better than me, which would probably be never. But nonetheless, she has lots of options that she could have. And she's really following through because she made a plan. And chances are she's worked with a number of people on this plan. And that's where you need to enlist the help of a coach, because I can guarantee you she has a financial planner. She probably has a life coach. She has a tennis coach. She has a number of coaches in her life that are helping her get peak performance. And that is something you may need to do if you're trying to figure it out. If you are sitting there right now, upset, deterred with what this career has laid out for you, it's just not what you figured, but you're stuck and you don't know how to get out, that's when you ask for some help. You reach out and call a friend. Hey, you reach out and talk to me. You see, I'm talking about this stuff all the time. Just hit me up on social media at Dr. Jarrett. Spell out the word doctor, J-A, 2 R's, E, 1 T. But that is the type of plan you need. And even if you're sketching it on paper yourself, you may not know the exact steps to get there, but that's okay. You will figure them out in the end. And if not, you phone a friend. We'll be back right after this message.
The time is now to refresh your career. We help doctors, lawyers, executives, and VIPs refresh and restart. Dr. Jarrett's coaching helps you build confidence, gain more credibility, develop more leadership skills, and gain clarity in your career path. Want to climb the executive ladder or branch out on your own? We'll put your career in overdrive. Visit drjarrett.com and sign up for your free strategy session.
Timely advertisement, right? Well, anyway, let's get to the evolution part of this, because I was really excited when she used the word evolution. And as you're thinking about evolution and the definition of evolution, evolution means, well, besides the fact that we may have come from monkeys or some other primitive animal, but the evolution I'm getting at here is the process or development of a person. And that is what we're talking about, because at the end of the day, we're all evolving. We are all changing into the next version of ourselves. And we have certain stops along the way. We had, Dr. Jarrett. Then we had Dr. Jarrett 2.0 and Dr. Jarrett 2.5. And it goes on and on and on. And you do evolve. And particularly if you're working at this very high level, and we'll call you a number one, because a lot of you fire starters are number one. If you're out there and you're at that championship mentality, you're living at that number one level, you're changing for the next version of that, which may look very different. It's going to look very different than what you originally thought. And sometimes you don't even know these changes are happening. But people will tell you from one reason to the next that you're changing. And sometimes the changes are magnificent. Sometimes they're really small and you can't see them. In fact, I put up a post on Facebook just the other week, just giving a new taste of a new sizzle reel I've been working on. And I mean, you guys can go find it on my Facebook page and check it out and let me know what you think about it. But some of the first comments were out there. Hey, don't forget about us minions out there, us little people. We always knew you were going to be great. And thank you for the support and the enthusiasm. But then you sit back and reflect at what that means. And you've been evolving this entire time. Since the moment you were born, you've been going through changes. And sometimes people describe them as transition. Sometimes people describe them as a metamorphosis. But you've really been going through this constant evolution. And when you look at your adult life and maybe your working life in its entirety, you have been evolving from kind of working up that career chain. And a lot of you guys want to be at that very top of that linear pathway. But some of you guys have some zigzag, stair-step kind of jumps that you've made from one place to the next. And that's okay. But that's why I love the fact that Serena chose the word evolution, because we are all going through this evolution. And you need to remember that you are constantly changing. And if you remember that you're constantly changing, you know that you're constantly evolving. And if you know that you're constantly evolving, you know that you are going to be a better self. Your next version is going to be better than your last. Your last version is going to be not as good as your next. And if you have your eye on that prize, nobody can stop you. Remember, fire starters, if you or anyone you know has been dissed, help them to come along this journey. Simply go to your favorite podcast player and hit share. Send it to a friend. Send this episode. Say, hey, listen to this episode. You need to continue your evolution. You're almost there. You're almost where you need to be. And then hit subscribe. That way you have this episode every time you need it, and I'll continue to put them out. And in the meantime, if you want to hang out with me in between the episodes, see what I've been doing out there in the media, see what I've been doing out there in the field, just follow me on social media at Dr. Jarrett, and we can have some dialogue there. Fire starters, I want you to know that you are on this journey of continuous evolution, and keep evolving until I see you next time.
No matter how disheartening the moment of accusation sounds, how deep the pain of immobilization stabs, or how bleak your future looks, no one can take away your license to live. Keep Dr. Jarrett's expertise handy and unlock your future. Go to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or another podcast player and subscribe right now to Licensed to Live. See you next time.